Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Blue Frontier. James here, joined by Ryan and Shan for Everton 0, Aston Villa 1. David Moyes' return to the Goodison Park touchline was one of the only noticeable changes on the day, I think it's fair to say. Everton have now failed to score in 9 of their last 11 Premier League matches, and I think a lot of the same problems that were here last week still persist. We're going to get into the post-match today, dissect the entire match, as we always do. Before we get into it, just a reminder to please leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. That helps us out a ton. We're almost at 100 ratings on Spotify, and I think we're at 69 nice on Apple. So let's get that number up. Appreciate everyone who's followed and rated us so far. We have really been amazed at the growth of the show and how quickly we've rebounded. So thanks, everyone. Links in the description for all our socials. Follow us on all of those. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. With that, let's get into the summary quote of the day. Shan, it was your turn to pick, so take us away.
Thanks, James. And yes, I decided to choose Lexel _pre. The gulf in quality between the two squads seemed to be the difference tonight. With the amount of mistakes the boys made, we should have been glad that Villa scored only one. If the luck was on our side tonight, we might have come away with points. However, good teams don't have to rely on luck. It will be interesting to see what this team looks like in a month or so when Moyes has more time to make an impact. And I think that's a pretty decent summary. Obviously, we'll get into it. I know, that kind of is a good segue towards some of our lineup discussions as well as the match discussions. But I think it's an overall good summary, and definitely the way they cut us open at certain points, we definitely have that fortune. But to go into score predictions, do want to kind of give a quick apology to Bad Gumby for the last mishap. He was 2 for 2, so the records have that on display. But in terms of score predictions for today, we have Mike, good old Wombat Combat, Mark M. Toyota Driver, FM Warrior, and Sean M. So congrats, guys, on getting the score correct. And of course, we'll keep that running tally. So if we start to see somebody that gets in the higher end club, we'll shout you out. So James, if you want to hit the lineups.
Yeah, and join the Discord. I don't know how many times we have to tell you to do it before you do it, but definitely join. The link is in the description. If you go to our link tree, it's there. So lineups. Starting with Everton, as we always do, only 2 changes made by David Moyes from Dyche's final match in charge against Bournemouth. He elects to bring in Jack Harrison on the right side, so Lindstrom drops to the bench. And then, of course, Broja led the line against Bournemouth, but introduces DCL after addressing Dominic and a number of questions in the pressers this week. Brings him back in to lead the line, and I don't know, guys, not any major changes. We know that it was kind of an abrupt introduction to David Moyes into the squad, and he only had a couple days of training with the team, but did we expect maybe a more radical shift in personnel, if not necessarily formation or approach?
Probably didn't expect it, considering what he said, that, maybe after a month he'll figure the team out, he'll know it better. But to me, it's a real concern. I mean, you should have been watching this team all along. I get it was very quick, but that's concerning to me. Like, it doesn't matter that the coaching transition was very quick if the coach wasn't ready to step right in and make some decisions. And, okay, maybe we'll give him one match, but things need to change very quickly, because I don't see in any universe why I would have come out with 4-2-3-1 here and had Harrison back in on the right and Dominic Calvert-Lewin in for anyone. And I think that played out exactly how I would have expected those subs to play.
Yeah, I think to Ryan's point, a bit disappointed to not see more change, especially too, I think, just given, of course, kind of moving on from Dyche, we expected a little bit of change outside of just, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Jack Harrison. But I think Brian says it well. It's not very surprising. And I think he's just probably trying to, in some way, give some of the guys that, he might be wondering a chance, right? And obviously that kind of showed today.
I kind of have to, not to your point, Sean, but you give these guys a chance. To Ryan's point, they've had chances all season. And part of the reason we're in the position we are is they haven't taken those chances. So to say, and I get the mentality maybe that okay, it's a fresh start for all these guys, reset, but they don't change in a week. It's still the same group of guys, still the same limitations as a squad. So I was also a little frustrated not to see more changes, few more tweaks from David Moyes, but it has only been a few days, and I get not wanting to radically shift things over the course of just a couple couple days. But anyway, we also want to talk about the Villa lineup, of course. We know coming into this game, they've lost 5 straight away matches, so potentially looked like maybe a good opportunity for Everton to recover some form and maybe catch a team who's down on their luck a little bit.
Yeah, for sure, James. And it was interesting because I looked at that, and if you look at those 5 opponents, they are pretty good. So it was one of those where, of course, it's very Everton but I think if you actually look at kind of who they were losing to, all kind of top half teams outside of Spurs. But that's Spurs. So you look at the Villa lineup. Pau Torres being out, I think, is a big miss. Tyrone Mings and Ezri Konsa are fine, but they're definitely not the Premier League's best partnership in the back. This does start for them 3 games in 6 days, with Arsenal on Saturday and Monaco on Tuesday for the Champions League. John Duran, I think being on the bench was interesting just because now he's back from the suspension, so you could have seen him maybe slot in for Ollie Watkins, but of course Ollie Watkins, good striker on his day. And I think for us, and I know Ryan will get into it, but of course that midfield to me is what I feared most when I saw that lineup. Morgan Rogers is an absolute engine. He's had a fantastic year for them, and of course, as we know, Amadou Onana has just been, a really good ball winner for them as well as progressive player. So him and Boubacar Kamara they're covering a lot of space, right? So for us, we really it wasn't the perfect matchup, especially kind of given our personnel, but it was one of those situations that I think even going in, new manager bounce potentially, right? I think a lot of thoughts in our minds going into it, but not their strongest lineup, but by far not their weakest.
You're playing right into a wall. Those 2 defensive midfielders, Onana and Kamara, they're both very good. That was our choice 1 and choice 2, by the way, in that window. Kamara signed for big wages on a free, of course. Yeah, it just allows the front 4 in front of them to play with a lot of freedoms, which is good for someone like Yuri Tielemans, who's really lazy and doesn't like to defend. He can get on the ball and be decent. He's about the only other threat there. Rogers is really the engine to me. I think they need another creative player up there personally in order to kind of go up. I think they probably need another ball player at center back, because I think that's the matchup you'd love to exploit. Mings is not great on the ball. Konsa's okay. Maybe Dominic Calvert-Lewin can get on them a little bit or get at them. Fundamentally, though, you still got to get past those 2 monsters in defensive mid, and it didn't. Now, that being said, I do think it lent itself to a little bit of a tactical approach, and you did see some differences there, but not right at first. I mean, Villa were all over us early.
Yeah, a bit concerning how quickly Villa were able to just come out of the gates and generate chances. In the 4th minute, Morgan Rogers forces Pickford into a huge save, and it is a really good save. Diving to his left, he pushes it out for a corner. Didn't waste any time. And just before that, Onana had a shot from distance. I mean, those are the types of shots we talked about. David Moyes is okay with giving up shots from distance. You want to limit the opponent's XG per shot. But he had another one in the 5th minute, just trying to get a worldie to rub it in Evertonians' faces, I guess. A little bit ambitious. But there were definitely cracks in Everton's defense, and really, honestly, in possession was kind of the big thing. And that was the most obvious change, I think, to anyone watching that match, was that there was a lot less directness to Everton's play, trying to not to hoof it directly up, but trying to play through the midfield a little bit or play through the wide areas. And with that said, we did not look good in trying to make that transition. In the 8th minute, Jared has a really bad giveaway, Villa break. Tielemans almost has a really clean shot on goal. Tarkowski slides in at the last second to block it. Just again, concerning. They're all over us. And then upon play resuming after that block, Onana fouls Ghana pretty nastily and gets almost an immediate yellow, which will obviously be a topic of conversation later on. But this is a good play by Tarkowski to block that. That was a scary chance, to say the least.
I think the individual numbers, too. This is the trouble with single shot XG. I mean, Tielemans' chance is 0.23. I mean, he's on a break and almost on a breakaway here. So I think that's kind, and I think we're going to see that in a couple different places.
Yes, we certainly will. In the 16th minute, another poor play in possession. Ashley Young trying a back pass to Pickford. This is the one, I think, where Tarkowski tries the back heel, and then Young tries to one touch it backward to Pick, and it's just not nearly enough pace on it. Watkins is in one-on-one with Pickford. Pickford's kind of caught in no man's land. He's come out to try to receive the pass that barely got halfway to him, and Watkins has a really good chance. Can't quite curl it around Pickford, but it was really, really close. I mean, that was another really scary moment. So we're only in the 16th minute, guys, and they've had 3 clear-cut, very good chances to score.
Yeah, it's funny. We've benefited some from OG own goal. It seemed like today we were attempting very hard to get a couple own assists because we handed them the ball several times. Now, that being said, that's bad on our end, but I don't know what you would have expected. It's not like we had a bunch of stalwarts on the ball out there. I think Jared in particular has been really disappointing on the ball. We'll see that later. And Ashley Young, I mean, you can't be playing through him. That's ultimately what it was. That whole side was just getting killed. Again, Watkins XG of 0.1 on that one. That just seems insanely low to me for that kind of chance. But look, I mean, in the first 25 minutes, I think we learned a bit of things. Number one, we weren't playing very well. I mean, it was 5-1 in shots, 6-1 in dispossessions. This is us trying to play with the ball. Jack dispossessed twice, Njai dispossessed twice, Decore once, Mikalenko once. But it was very obvious the tactics were different. I mean, this was not hoof it up to the center forward as the outlet. There was an attempt to press a little bit, try and win the ball and play and hit him on the rapid counterattack. When that didn't happen, there was a recycling back and attacking more through the wings. I mean, again, those midfielders are tough to play through. Mangala was on the ball a lot, so was Ghana, but really playing through the fullbacks. And to me, these are kind of the weak areas of our team, but I think in particular the right side, there was just nothing really happening down then. But we started to grow into the game and get a little bit better. I don't think it's unreasonable to think that we should come out on first touch and be a well-oiled machine after a couple days of training.
Yeah, it's such a radical change that you would expect some transitional friction, the team not having been instructed to even do anything besides launch it every single time. And now all of a sudden you're being asked to play it through the midfield, interlink with your fullbacks, look for the fullbacks to get forward more aggressively. Like, these are changes that I think will take time to adjust. And there's major questions as to whether we have the personnel to do it. But as you said, Ryan, we did eventually find some opportunities in the 26th minute. Mikalenko gets the ball wide almost exactly at the midfield line, plays a really good ball in behind Dominic Calvert-Lewin making the run. Dom kind of has to take it on the half volley, and he's kind of moving away from goal as he takes the shot. It's not a bad hit, but it is wide. But again, that's the directness maybe that you prefer to see rather than launching it up and Dom having to receive it or head it to somebody else. He's making that run in behind, and we're trying to find.
And I think we're okay with that. I think that's something you would expect with Moyes. When the chance is there, we push it. And I think we'll probably push for the rapid counter more often than not. I mean, they had a lot more of the ball in the first half. I know we had the ball a lot more after the goal. We'll get to that in a second. So I don't want to make it sound like it was all just us sitting on the ball and playing ticky-tack. It was not that at all, but there were times when we kind of slowed it down. But you could tell we got a little bit of confidence in this point, and we started coming up a little bit. The problem with that, as we start to push up a little bit, yeah, we're creating chances. I think this is a big one in the 37th minute, and right before half, they get one too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in the 37th, as you mentioned, again, Everton trying to pressure high. You saw Decore, especially in the first half. I mean, just running relentlessly up and down the pitch, covering so much ground. But it's actually Ashley Young, in this case, who steps in, wins the ball inside of Villa's half, plays it wide to Mikalenko, again, who crosses it in. Decore is arriving at the right time, and he gets some decent contact and forces Martinez into a save. It's a good chance, but really doesn't get enough on the shot to really make it too difficult for Martinez. And then a few minutes after that, Dom gets a shot on target. It's a really, really weak chance, a really weak shot as it turns out, but it's again created through pressure from Jack Harrison in this case in Villa's half, winning the ball back and then immediately looking to attack the goal. And then right before half, Jalen Ramsey has a really close opportunity. So Morgan Rogers turns and drives to create a shot. It kind of deflects and bounces to Ramsey, who takes some time, takes the shot, and he tries to kind of loop it, but it just goes over the crossbar. Another big chance and takes us to halftime. A couple chances for Everton, but fair to say that Villa had much better opportunities and played better overall.
Yeah, and I think to your point, James, earlier, we're not going to be a well-oiled machine. I think also, too, there were points where we pressed them, we didn't win the ball, and no one knew where they were supposed to be, right? And I think Villa just has the personnel to move the ball really quickly, as well as just kind of carry it into our half and essentially just kind of, get on the counterattack, right? And agreed with Ryan. I mean, some of those chances, of course, we did a good job in defending as well as we could. But yeah, I think the XG numbers were incredibly unkind to Villa when you look at those two chances.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, but in terms of the individual chances that added up to this XG, but 0.66 XG for Villa in the first half. Everton finished with 0.51, 58% possession to Villa. we were at 42. They had 9 shots, but just 2 on target. I did want to call out Jack Harrison's numbers in the first half because I noticed early on.
Do we have to?
Yes, we do have to. Unfortunately for him, I don't mean to put him on the spot too much, but I noticed him running hard a lot in the first half. And then I had a look at some of his defensive numbers, and it's just shockingly bad. 2 for 11 in duels, 2 for 8 in ground duels, 0 for 3 in aerial duels. He was 0 for 3 in dribbles. He did, of course, as I said, just before half, create that one chance through that high pressure. But for all of the hard work that he put forth, nothing to show for it, essentially running around like a chicken with his head cut off defensively.
No, I think the problem here is that in order to try and get up the pitch and score goals and play it around their defensive mids, it's in essence keeping us open. So, and I think that's what happened. 0.66 is an absurdly low XG number. I mean, they had a couple really big chances. It probably should have been 2 or 3-0 at half, to be perfectly honest. Credit to the Decore chance. Honestly, I thought that was good timing. Actually didn't get offside. That was a miracle. And it was a good cross from Mikalenko. I mean, that could have been scored, definitely. Let's not forget that the keeper on the other team is decent as well, too. I mean, look, they're probably better than us at every position. I mean, if you really go down the list, I mean, where are we better than them? Almost nowhere. And you could maybe make an argument Pickford is better than Martinez, but I don't think most people that weren't Everton fans would believe that, considering the guy's won, the Golden Gloves as the world's best keeper at times. So this is hard. I mean, you're not going to have enough quality on the ball maybe to pull off some of the things that you did. So I would say we were fortunate to go into half at 0-0, but some changes had to be made, I would have thought.
Yeah, well, I think there's a problem with both our ability to play with the ball at our feet and in possession, but also we just don't have the athletes to aggressively press like we were.
Right.
And you could see that they punished
or hit on
us.
the counter, right?
Right, exactly. And that's part of it. Like the rapid counter, we can't play the ball quickly enough. Guys can't get the ball out of their feet fast enough, and guys aren't making runs forward. So I get why Moyes plays this way, why that's what he wants to do, but I just think he clearly doesn't have the personnel to really implement it. And obviously the short notice, limited time is even more harmful, but it's gonna be tough to get this group of players to play in that way. And of course, as soon as we start the second half, just 5 minutes in, we're finally punished with the Watkins goal. This is, I think, a lot on Jared Branthwaite. He's way out of position. He's stepping up well over the halfway line. He kind of knocks it down, and it's a little clumsy. He tries to play a back pass. Morgan Rogers is right onto it, driving at goal, plays Watkins in. We've got nobody back. Pickford caught coming out, and it's a pretty easy finish and a goal. Again, that could have happened 3 or 4 times in the first half, but eventually they find their way through, as they think was almost inevitable based on how we set up.
I think Pickford's effort here is even worse, though, to me. Why is he coming out here? It makes no sense. You could see Tark was nowhere near him because Tark pulled up because Pickford was coming out. I think you have to stay in goal on this one. You have to hope Tarkowski can cut off the angle, and you got to make him beat you with a legitimate shot, not a tap-in that slips under you. I thought that was atrocious to me. Again, you also are exposed here because Tarkowski has absolutely no pace whatsoever, and you could tell Moyes is set up playing not a high line, but a slightly higher line. I think some of the flaws with that is, and maybe it's athleticism, James, certainly shape, like you can't have a mid-line the way we were and not put pressure on their players with the ball in the back. Thank goodness Pau Torres was not here. He would have picked us to pieces, or they would have dropped Tielemans back like they did in the first match and just completely dominate us. But you've got to do both of those things, and he may find out that Tarkowski can't play like this, even though I'm sure he would want Tarkowski to play. So I think there's a comedy of errors. But yeah, I mean, we were just gifting them chances too. I mean, that's a big part of it. Now, I'm not going to blame Villa for that. I'm sure that was somewhat by design, and they do have some engines in there, but you just made it too easy, in my opinion.
We did have the comment from Groza, North Virginia Toffee, who said, I expected the high press to get punished more than it did. And yeah, I mean, we talked about it already. It finally was punished. Then things start to get just kind of crazy. Ghana gets this yellow in the 51st for cleanly winning the ball against Kamara in the box. I mean, he does make contact with him, but he wins the ball after, and it's again the high pressure. That was a ridiculous call. And then in the 53rd is the first controversial moment of a couple. It's the Onana foul on Mangala stopping the break, but he doesn't get the second yellow. There's a bit of a coming together. All the players are crowding around the ref. Tarkowski's like trying to crowd all the players out. Pickford also gets a yellow for dissent. I don't know, guys. What did you think of this no call, or call and no card?
That was absolutely atrocious. I mean, I think you look at kind of the letter of the law, and I mean, he clearly is impeding play. I mean, you could argue in regards to, are we threatening on the attack, right, given us, but in regards to the actual rule and how it's applied, I mean, it's as kind of bang on of a yellow as you can get, and it's just incredibly unfortunate because, I mean, this is just leading to a plethora of errors that kind of really follow suit, and just this game was just completely lost in regards to the control.
And the response is that he was going down before he was pulled down slightly is irrelevant. They called it a foul. If it's a foul, it's a second yellow. I mean, this is as blatant as you get. It was still a promising attack. He was going to break by one of their defensive midfielders into the open field and was taken down. I thought the Mangala foul was absolute nonsense before this, where he clearly stepped in front of a player. The game just totally got out of control at this point. The corner situation was bad enough, but this is just, I just don't get it. In a league, it's just every other week it's different.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting just looking at this particular play as a delineation point because it's 7-5 in fouls, Everton, prior to the no call on, or no yellow on Onana. After that, somehow it's 10-5 in fouls in favor of Everton, and we had way more of the ball after they scored, which we'll talk about in a second. I don't know how it's that lopsided. They were, especially on every single corner, pulling shirts, headlocks, giving guys piggybacks, like ridiculous stuff, and somehow the referee didn't see fit to award Everton anything on that front. It was ridiculous. But we move on because we got to get to the rest of the action. And Jai just does an unbelievable job getting a cross off in the 54th minute. We'll move on from that. But in the 59th, Moyes has seen enough of Jack Harrison, elects to remove him in favor of Lindstrom. I'd argue that sub probably going to come at halftime based on his first half performance, but looking
or before the game started.
Yes, or before the game started. That would have been even better for sure. And then just a couple minutes after Lindstrom comes on, we talked about the corners. This is the shove in the back on Jesper going up for a header, and there's no call. I don't even think it's reviewed, which is unbelievable to me. And there's another foul on the play, Dominic Calvert-Lewin getting hooked around the neck. Guys, what did you make of this play?
It's a blatant penalty. I mean, it's not only that he doesn't even try and disguise it at all. I mean, at least be clever. Like when I used to do this nonsense, I would sneak and I'd have my arm already extended, or maybe I'd grab in the armpit or do something terrible. But like his arms are collapsed. He extends them with both hands and sends Jesper flying through the air. The other one maybe could have been a penalty, but it was virtually like that every corner. The way Villa does their corners too is absolute garbage. I mean, the Premier League has to address this stuff where they just stack the box to the point where you're just firing it into there. But this is an how does this not go to VAR and isn't immediately given as a penalty? I honestly thought that these two combination calls were probably the two worst calls I've seen in an Everton match all year, and they happened within about 5-10 minutes of each other. Shan, I'm interested in your take.
I'm shocked that, I don't expect VAR to ever go our way, but at minimum to get it even a review, right? It just to almost just act like nothing happened, right? And it's not like no one complained, right? I mean, Jesper obviously is trying to go to the ref to basically say like, hey, like this is what happened.
And there's no way he could have seen it too, Sean. I mean, there's a pile of players in there. So to me, the point of VAR is to be an assistant. So go look at it on the monitor. Like who is I don't know who the VAR official was that told Samuel Barrett to say, oh, don't need to look at it.
Yeah. And it just led to kind of this culmination of frustration that continued to happen, where it just felt like our player would get fouled and then we would just, having a kind of a tap on somebody else and Villa would get the call. And it was just because at a time where we're not playing our best, right? And we're not expecting the refs to bail us out here. But I mean, these are kind of calls that you'd expect any kind of normal, competent referee or VAR kind of panel to at least address.
You know that Jesper is kind of a slender guy. He's not the heaviest, biggest guy. But when you're in the air, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't take a lot of contact to completely throw you off. And the fact, we've seen penalties awarded in the past where guys really weren't involved in the play. He is going to win that header. He's rising up and gets shoved in the back. So I just think it's completely inexcusable. I don't know what to say. The refereeing continues to be a complete joke in this league. But This
Paul
one,
Tierney.
Paul Tierney's the VAR. Well, there you go. I mean, you could have said anyone. I would have been like, there you go, because they all are equally sucky. But, I mean, come on. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just embarrassing to me. I mean, it's one thing to implement it wrong, but I can't imagine you watching this and thinking that was fine. It's just unbelievable to me. Part of the problem is, too, you could tell that we still needed subs at this point. We wanted to score, and I think Goodison was probably a little fired up from that, and maybe they couldn't have seen it as closely as we did, but it seemed very obvious that people were getting tackled. People were frustrated because they wanted to see more. But I feel like Moyes takes too long to make changes here. Villa makes an interesting change here because Ramsey had a phenomenal game, in my opinion, in terms of just battling and elbow grease and work effort. A little interesting to bring in Buendia to get on the ball, presumably more. Kind of a curious sub, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, Ryan. I mean, one thing also, too, we didn't really talk about, Leon Bailey was on the bench. So he, a guy like him, a former Everton target, believe it or not, his threat was not really recognized today, and I think if the game was probably in a deadlock, you'd probably see somebody like him. But no, agree. I mean, Jacob Ramsey was really good today. I mean, Buendia, I think he's just been suffering with injuries and whatnot, so he's just a guy that good midfielder, and probably they want to get him up to speed as they kind of go into their Champions League run-in. But yeah, it was interesting sub, and I think for them, you could just tell it was just getting more and more difficult for Everton to kind of just break the lines.
And I just don't think we were working them that hard too. So maybe Unai Emery's thinking, hey, I got matches this weekend. I don't need to do a whole lot here. I don't need to bring on Bailey to attack him on the counter and strike, which thank God for us. Leon Bailey running against some of these guys. There was an interesting moment here where we had some good ball movement. We switched the fields in the final third. Mikolenko again with a decent cross. I mean, to Miko's credit too, he served up a couple decent balls today. I still don't think it's a good idea to have him out there, but okay, kudos to him. He played okay. Then we made the double sub in the 84th minute, and I gotta admit, this probably, if there was ever a moment in the match that made my heart just kind of sink and think, oh my God, we are an embarrassment, this was it to me. Again, I don't mind that we changed formation. I think we should have done it much sooner, so I think that's part of the embarrassment for me. But, Beto and O'Brien come on for Decore and Young. Once again, we play with this double striker concept, which is just, I don't get it. You see Moyes signaling 3-5-2 the whole time. The problem is we haven't really practiced this. There's no particular schema to do this and no particular strategy. So I feel like people were just kind of lost, clueless. It was Beto and Dominic Calvert-Lewin trying to get on the end of balls, and that was about it. No real space in the middle to help kind of break their lines or anything. And we had two shots the rest of the way, I guess, and there was a big chance. We'll get to that in a second. Really two big chances. So maybe you could say it worked, but oh my God, really? Can we please, let's just hope at least going forward that we'll have a little bit more of a plan. I just hate this personally, but I guess you could argue it improved the chances. I like bringing on O'Brien, though. He looks tidy on the ball, probably better than the other two center backs.
Yeah, I think for me, Ryan, what was frustrating, two things. Beto not coming on earlier, right? I think that was just something, he does a good job of bringing Jesper on. You could, criticize him maybe for not bringing him on.
But why not try Beto at a minimum, right? Like if you believed in those tactics, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a good double sub to try. But also, too, right, if we're just going to kind of ignore that, why not bring on Patterson as well, right, to chase the game? If you're going into that 3-5-2, Ashley Young, right, is just, he hasn't had a great match. At worst, right, Patterson makes a mistake and we're going down 2-0. But at that point, right, you're chasing the game. You're trying to get something out of it. So I think those two things when it came to just the substitution patterns. And of course, I know he's learning the team. I'll give him a little bit of grace here. Not that much, but I think those are two things that are realistic asks for a day like today.
Some of these chances are decent, though. So, maybe you could point back and say, man, we could have scored. Mangala brought that one down pretty well. His shot was impressive. He did that very gracefully. I think it got deflected in a way that was probably fortunate, for Martinez, that it took some heat off it and allowed him to save it without a corner or anything. Because who knows if you get another corner there with those guys on the pitch. Then there's the chance in the 93rd, and I know this is going to be what everyone remembers, recency bias and everything else. Pick kind of slips on this long ball. Can we talk about this first touch from Lindstrom? At pace.
Incredible.
His skill is tremendous at times. When he puts it all together, he's obviously a good player. He hasn't quite ever done that, really. He makes a great cross here. Lovely ball, and Dom just lashes at it, puts it over, doesn't hit it solid. Again, it's 94 minutes into a match. I'm sure he was tired or whatnot. I don't care if you don't score here. It's not that easy a chance. People making it sound like it was a total layup, but it's just not even close.
Yeah.
And, every time he misses a chance over and over and over again, you just point to the numbers and you kind of ask the question, like, look, if that is your primary role, the way we were playing today, too, I mean, the primary role was he had some role in build-up, but I mean, he's trying to get on the end of stuff and really create chances or score chances, and it's just not happening.
Yeah, I mean, Moyes said in the post-match, we'll talk about more of his comments in just a moment, but that was the instruction. Try to get yourself in goal-scoring positions, and he does that in this example, but the finish just isn't there. And yeah, in isolation, okay, it's a trickier finish than some would make it out to be, but it's the aggregation of all of the chances over 3 seasons that just have not been put in the back of the net. And when you're throwing everything forward and just trying to make something stick, and you actually create something and you don't finish it, that's going to live long in the memory for people, and I don't begrudge them for that.
Yeah, and I think in this instance, I think it's fair to evaluate a striker and suggest that he maybe gets to some balls that others don't. He creates some chances, higher XG than maybe some others might in certain situations, but he's not doing anything particularly unique to get on the end of this one. It's right there for him, and you just would expect a top center forward to get a little bit better strike on the ball than this, and it's just when he kind of gets in spaces like that, you just don't see the striking capability that maybe you would like to see. I don't know if Beto does better. I don't know if that's really the point. But I think tactically, though, I think it's disappointing the fact that they clearly just set up shop after their goal. Maybe they thought they could get at us still on the counter better. They really, really didn't necessarily. And I think the numbers speak to that. It's a little bit of a shame that we couldn't come up with a little bit more after the goal, I think.
Yeah, I mean, 5-0 in shots after their goal, 60% possession for Everton to 40 for Villa, 84% pass success. I mean, we won 10 aerials, they won 12, 10-8 in tackles. We had 4 corners to their 1. And yeah, okay, we heaved everything forward, especially in the last 10 to 12 minutes, but they were totally comfortable with us trying to break them down in their final third. Low block, we're going to head everything out. And in that way, I kind of like the Beto O'Brien sub, and you're hoping to maybe get a set piece and you have some extra size to go after them, but didn't create anything super substantial besides the one chance that we missed.
I think there are a couple flaws with this approach, though, to some extent, and we have some limitations in personnel. Like, I like the idea of playing the 3 in the back when you free up JB and O'Brien to win balls. And they're okay. JB's not necessarily the best with the ball at his feet, but he can pass it and ping it around a little bit with both feet. So if you really need something, maybe you can take chances. But if you're going to play like that and they're going to pack it in, those guys have to be able to pass the ball well. And I don't know if that's necessarily who you would pick. You could see someone like Jimmy Gardner coming in and playing on a wide center back in this way. It might be more effective. It was obvious, though, our one threat to receive the ball deeper and run was Njai. And they were all over him. I mean, he was dispossessed 4 times in the last 30 minutes. I mean, they had 20 clearances in the last 30 minutes, so there was some siege on there too, but it just, I don't know, I've just never really convinced that we were going to score, unfortunately. And I think if you look back at the summary, I think there were some missed chances, though. I mean, they missed a lot of big chances, I think, like I said, that XG number of 1.36 at the end, and that should have been, in my opinion, much higher, and maybe a better model will make it that way. But man, we had 8 corners, and I know they were all street fights, and the referee were letting them get away with stuff, but shouldn't that be an advantage at least to the attackers? And to me, I mean, the delivery, it was terrible. I think Jack would have been better on corners today. We have to do better. We're going to have to score some stuff off set pieces. We talked about how Moyes historically was, and it wasn't the same stuff today. It wasn't that far post stuff. We had different runs and different setups. Maybe there were some chances there, but the opportunities were not there. The delivery has to be better.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Ryan. I mean, I also expect Ashley Young to take better corners, right? Like, we could argue about Jack maybe taking corners or somebody even like Kana if he really wanted to kind of, change things up in terms of kind of who was available. But I think what was also frustrating to me, too, is although we were getting dominated, it really took kind of a giveaway for them to basically be able to set up shop, right? And I think if that doesn't happen, we get into a play where we might have been able to kind of at least test them and possibly, as slow as our counter has been, even get a chance or two outside of what we were kind of able to manufacture with them kind of setting up that low block after they scored. So yeah, I think just kind of a game of frustration and just also definitely kind of a game where I hope Moyes really looks at this and kind of understands that he's going to have to really understand this personnel a lot better than he does.
I think with better players, too, they were there for the taking tonight. I mean, they had, lost 5 in a row on the road, have not been playing kind of in and out. They're missing a couple guys that are good for consistency's sake. But I left away from this one with a real sour taste in my mouth. I didn't think we played well. I don't like the fact that I waited too long to make subs. I thought it was sloppy, ugly. I thought it was a matter of time for them picking us off, and it just was frustrating personnel stuff. That being said, one decision goes our way, and it maybe is totally different. I mean, even with the second yellow, we probably wouldn't have scored. We've already seen that once this year. But the penalty makes all the difference in the world. I don't understand how you can't call that. It's really disappointing to me. And so I thought it was crap on so many levels. I mean, it's one thing to have the officials cheat you. It's another thing to perform like that. But truly, we're probably fortunate to not get absolutely smoked.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for silver linings, this is a pretty big reach. But if you look at our XG total on the day, 1.09, if that holds in the FB ref models, that would be our highest XG in a game since Brentford in November. So that's maybe something to be slightly optimistic about. We did create some decent chances.
James, you make a really good point. And if Dominic Calvert-Lewin plays 90 minutes every time, he'll lead the league in goals minus non-penalty XG even higher next time in his inability to finish. That was for you, DL.
You won't even let me have one silver lining.
I got to admit, I'm struggling a little bit. I thought this was a truly awful performance, and I'm just very disappointed that someone comes in the way he did and didn't make changes, even more quickly in the second half. Like, he should have seen some of this coming. Like, none of what we saw should have been surprising. So I'm a little confused as to what he was expecting and what he was seeing after the goal that made him think that, I'm only going to make a change in like the 80th. I don't get it. So fine, I forgive him for starting with the wrong guys, them missing a bunch of chances, us getting lucky, but it just, I don't know. I mean, some people felt the same way I did, including Wilfred.
Yeah, Wilfred from our Discord, I think, sums it up beautifully with a simple question: what's a good mixer for bleach? We had a lot of talk about shotgunning non-alcoholic IPAs in the Discord. Bleach is really cutting to the point, but I'd recommend some rubbing alcohol. You mix that with the bleach, you get a rag, you get some nice chloroform going, put it over your mouth, off to sleep. No problem.
Okay, hold on. We are not endorsing or supporting doing that. That is a joke, folks. This is a responsible podcast and one for families. So I just want to make that clear, even if my inner monologue right now is swearing and has been for the last 3 hours.
We also had a comment from Blue Sky. We are on Blue Sky now. Follow us on Blue Sky from Ryan Wren 86. Not that one. The other one who is an Evertonian. New era, same old, done in by momentary cataclysmic defending and the inability to score Everton. I think that's pretty much exactly spot on. Now, if we're going to go into performances, if we have to pick good performances out of a poor team performance, there's one name that stands out and one name who I think deserves an honorable mention. Which one of you guys wants to take this one?
Well, I'll jump in on the first one. I thought Ghana was solid today. He had to clean up a lot of garbage. Yes, he once again had a bunch of shots from the top of the 18 that were not close, but he was hitting it through traffic, so that stuff doesn't bother me. 74 touches, second, I think, for the team, 88% passing, 9 passes into the final third, 3 interceptions led the team. Yeah, he had those 3 shots, but I mean, won 7 out of 11 battles. In a game, in a match where we did not win a lot of battles, relatively speaking, the rest of the team were abhorrent. When we should have been on the front foot at times, I thought he stood out. He is still a very, very good player. I think he's someone where, I think for his ability to recruit as well, I think you got to think about keeping him. I would love to see what he could do if he was allowed to be a little bit more aggressive too, pressing up and trying to win the ball some. But yeah, I mean, I thought he was probably the best of a bunch that was pretty inconsistent and all over. You know, it's funny too, even Decore had a phenomenal first half, I thought, in terms of his activity and just creating havoc, and was even decent on the ball a couple times. And, you know, Dom didn't run onto one right and a couple little things here or there, and had that really good attempt on goal, honestly. I thought that was actually a pretty good attempt, all things considered. And then I thought he just completely flunked in the second half in many ways. It was just not his best, tale of two halves. I have a feeling I know who you're going to go with, though, in terms of honorable mention.
Well, given how much crap we've talked about him since this show started, I do want to give an honorable mention to Mikolenko. I still think Moyes is probably asking a lot of him to try to get forward. Ashley Young was definitely staying back a lot. Mikolenko asked to get forward a little more. Mikolenko, 5 for 7 in ground duels, 77% pass accuracy. He had 2 key passes. We talked about those in the timeline. 3 for 6 in crosses, 3 for 4 in long balls. I still think we need to improve dramatically at both fullback areas, both fullback positions, but Mikolenko, for a first start under David Moyes, could have done a lot worse, especially given some of the other performances his teammates put up on the day.
Yeah, and my man of the match is Martin Sheriff. I'm just kidding, of course.
We need more strikers, more center.
We do need more strikers.
We put another center forward on the bench and we didn't score. Now, if Evan Ferguson was on the bench, we definitely would have scored.
I know. I think we should need to throw the kitchen sink at him, Ryan.
Tom Cannon, he would have made all the difference tonight, folks. Yet another center forward.
One of my favorite things from today, on a side note, was Alan Myers going back and forth with just random sources to say that we are not in the race, the amazing race for Tom Cannon. So thank you, Alan, for your service. It's truly appreciated. No, my man of the match would be Iliman Ndiaye. For how much he was on an island today, the opportunities that he created and found a way to kind of get out of trouble a few times and create some chances was something that I just have more appreciation for, I think, as well as kind of the Everton faithful do. It makes me more optimistic kind of going forward that if David Moyes can find a way to play him centrally and in a position where he has open space, what he can do. But just on a day like today, even too, you could just tell he really wanted to kind of get our attack going, and there were moments that he definitely was able to do so, some decent deliveries in the box. But I think even though, let's just say we didn't score a goal, his efforts to me just definitely did not go unnoticed.
Can you just imagine if we had one other attacking player that was half as good as Iliman Ndiaye? Because teams so easily can just double, triple team him and take him out of the game. And if you're an opposing manager creating a scouting report, opposition analysis, you're like, just try to stop this guy, and you stop Everton from doing anything meaningful. We had just even close to his quality, we'd be so much better going forward. It's not even funny because he just attracts so much attention, but the other guys can't do anything. So what's it all for?
It's a real shame that we didn't have him and Alex Iwobi play, at the club at the same time, because I think, those two guys would have been really fun. Even under the managers we've had, I think they would have been really fun.
Oh my God, Iwobi's numbers this year.
Yeah.
They are insane.
Don't remind me.
Well, okay. So I think we got to talk about what this thing's going to look like going forward. I've got a lot of concerns. I mean, if you look at the way we played, maybe it's a symptom of who we played against, why we had to play wide so often. But I just can't help but say, I know Ashley Young's played pretty well this year, but I just don't think you can have someone on the ball like that if you're going to attack. They can't get forward. I think one thing that Moyes has liked in the past, and we talked in our past assessments and stuff, is at least one of the fullbacks have to get forward a little bit and create at least some numerical advantages, and neither of these guys could. And kudos to Mikolenko for playing a decent match, but honestly, he's too slow moving the ball. There were several times he lost it. His recovery pace isn't there either. And I think the problem with that is that if you're going to have Mangala or even Decore, if it drops deeper, or Ghana, or even James Gardner kind of play defensive mid, they can go out there and cover for those guys. I'd rather have them making plays in the open field. We have some depth at center mid. We can sub them out if they're on yellows, and allowing your fullbacks to be a little bit more aggressive. You can't do that. But the problem is Ashley Young was giving balls away today, and Miko had some good crosses from deep. But these are low percentage chances. I just think you need to replace both of them. Jack Harrison was terrible, just terrible. And if he's not going to release the ball quickly on these counterattacks, he can't play. And I don't know what to do about that. I feel bad for him. The touches are there, but we saw how bad his numbers were. Jacob Ramsey was all in his business and was 13 of 15 in duels. Think about that. And he was fouled 4 times. Is Jacob Ramsey the greatest player in the history of the Premier League? No. So what is going on? How can you be so physically overwhelmed by things like that? And I'm sorry, Dominic Calvert-Lewin I thought was terrible. He had a couple moments early where he looked like he was finally fighting for space. Congratulations, that's great. But the second that game turned into a street fight, Beto should have been on. I do not understand any logical in the world that would possibly say Beto and Lindstrom shouldn't be playing ahead of those two guys. Thing is, Jack, maybe when people got tired, now, if you brought in Jack later with fresh legs to kind of serve balls into the box, he's very technical. I'd play him in the middle. That way you wouldn't have to shuttle people around. You've got now another talent who maybe could strike from distance. Now Ndiaye doesn't have to just sit in one place and try and get away from crowds. I don't know. This team needs talent though. So maybe we should go through some of Moyes' comments post-match. He said a lot, and maybe revisit whether we think the same needs still exist. I know it's one match. What do you guys think? Shall we? How about I start? So David Moyes post-match, Here are the quotes. I think I got these right. I'm not going to even attempt to do his accent. I'm under no illusions of the job I've got to do in any way. We couldn't score a goal today. Again, we tried hard, thought we had decent control of the game. Villa might have had one or two better chances in the first half.
I mean, it's diplomatic. If you want to frame it that way, it's certainly diplomatic.
I hope that's what it is.
What can we define what control of the game is? Like, what control of what game? Like the game that we played today? Like, because I think when it came to control, I mean, Villa. Listen, I think there were a few moments that were a little bit nervy in regards to we did okay looking, from the outside view on their press. But, I mean, they were just kind of – it looked like a practice session at some points, right, where they essentially, to your point, Ryan, if they played a little bit better, they could have easily carved us open.
He then went on to – go ahead.
Imagine if Torres plays in that game today.
I don't want to.
I mean,
really
they're
don't
just passing the ball around us. It would have been a training drill. I mean, Mings a couple times almost released a ball too late. They gave the ball away on some long passes too. So, I mean, there were opportunities here. So, in that aspect of us getting forward a little bit, maybe it was helpful, but there was no control out there. What on earth is he talking about? Villa might have had, at the end, in the first half, think about it, Villa might have had one or two better chances in the first half.
Might have 3 inside 15, 16 minutes.
Yeah, so I'm not under any illusion that he's telling exactly how things are on here.
There's no way he's watching that and thinking, it's not that bad. He's like, this is... He said, I'm under no illusions of the job I had to do, and I think that's the most telling of those comments.
I suppose. I mean, a little bit out of position, little mistake cost us the game, blah, blah, blah. And then the question was asked of him. I thought this was the telling one. With what you've got available to you, do you feel like you can continue to see an improvement, although it's only the first game, so you can get out of the relegation fight that you're in? Improvement in the current players, basically what you have. He didn't really answer this one directly. I think he kind of sidestepped a little bit, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then his observation comparing us to Shan was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's Sean Deitch, not Sean Kahn, the third co-host of the show. He said, Sean got some early results early in the season. We have to show an awful lot more quality on the ball. Didn't play well enough. Didn't retain the ball well enough. I mean, yeah, that's not what this squad has really been transformed over the last couple of years to do. We sold all the guys who were good on the ball, Onana, Iwobi, etc. The list goes on. So yeah, I mean, and I don't begrudge him at all for saying we need to get better players. I mean, we said the exact same thing on the squad assessment. So I think, obviously, but nothing wrong with that. He has been kind of skittish in regard to like, can you get us out of this battle? He's like, word salad. Never says yes, I think so.
Yeah, I think I'd like to add too. I mean, in terms of because I listened to the 2.5 minute presser. He wasn't really, I think he's done a good job of at least saying the players do have accountability, but at the same time not questioning the players' effort or intensity or just kind of, so I think Moyes has done as good of a job in regards to, I think, managing the dressing room from afar, right? I think where my concern comes in is I really hope he has a bit of a poker face right now in regards to saying he doesn't really know what's going on, right? Because to me, that is the more concerning piece, right? And I think we'll learn exactly if that's true or not, right, in the coming matches.
I think also the one position where you couldn't help but talk about, they did talk about Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and he didn't speak with a lot of confidence about that. I thought that was a little bit interesting. Moyes also mentioned that Armando Broja, they think he's going to be out between 10 to 12 weeks. It's ankle ligaments. Now, he mentioned that there is a possibility that he will have to go back to Chelsea. I would think at this point, if it's 12 weeks, knowing he's not going to get all the way up to speed for a bit, I mean, that's... Maybe my math is off, but that's 3 months. So, right, there's typically maybe a couple days more than 4 weeks in a month, right?
No, I think your math is pretty good there, Ryan.
You think so?
Impressive work there. That's good.
February has fewer days than all the other months, too, in case you didn't know that. Math. I know numbers. I can do math, stats and stuff. Anyway, his indication there's possibility he will have to go back to Chelsea. I don't know the arrangement. I know that we weren't going to pay him until he got back, but I don't know if it's a situation where if he's injured at any moment, we would not pay him. If that's the case, he's definitely going back. I wonder if there's a deal where you can strike and say, look, he goes back, but we'll take someone else and pay him if it's a money thing and a financial fair play type of thing. And if that's the case, I mean, maybe there's some other options in there, someone that we could steal for a little bit. I don't know. I mean, Chelsea seems like they can just sell their women's team, hotels, all sorts of stuff to avoid PSR. It sounds like they're going to get out of their illicit payment scheme by just paying off the Premier League and not points. That's fun.
That's an option? Oh, wait, we didn't have any money to do that anyway. They probably didn't offer that to us.
Well, honestly, in the Premier League's defense, I defend the recruitment team often at Everton. They did not identify any hotels for purchase or sales. That's kind of on them. I know maybe that's out of their job jar, but in theory, it could have gone under the same cycle. So it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, look, I guess there are a couple different thoughts here, and I kind of want to run through these two quotes from Mike and Nick, and because maybe I'm being too harsh on Moyes here, but I don't like his other comment was, hopefully in the next few weeks it'll be the David Moyes team that will do better. We don't have a few weeks, in my opinion.
Yeah, so Mike's comment from our Discord. Join our Discord yet again. Not sure why everyone was expecting a revolution to be led by David Moyes, of all people, with 4 days to prepare for this game. There were positives, but they were compromised to being completely open to a counterattack, and that did us in. Horrendous officiating cost us a penalty, if not more, with Onana's clear second yellow. This wasn't a make-or-break game. Let's see what Moyes does with more time. And then we had Nick Weinstein. I thought we'd lose by more today, to be honest. We just don't have a good squad and don't have a striker who can take a chance. Moyes needs more time and a few players in. Thoughts on those comments, guys?
Well, I think both comments are valid. I think for me, which is interesting, and I think Ryan wants to talk about this a little bit more in regards to the David Moyes team that will do better. It's interesting for a guy that, can work with a director of football but doesn't want accountability in regards to if he is kind of just the coach. There's a lot of kind of blurred lines in regards to how this is going to go. I really do hope that him and Kevin have a collaborative relationship, because it's necessary at this point. But it is one of those things that when he kind of makes a comment like that, right, he's putting himself under pressure, right? That's not something that essentially the media kind of just asked him to do, and he obliged. That was kind of something that for him, right, he's kind of given himself a small grace period. But I agree with Ryan, right? You look at our kind of upcoming matches. I mean, you have Spurs, Brighton, and then you get into kind of a period where we need to really win some games.
Yeah, and I don't think, these teams are not, I mean, I'm sorry, you're playing Spurs at home on Sunday? Spurs they have a lot of attacking talent, but they're gettable. So Brighton's quite good, but we've done there before. I mean, these are not world-class powerhouses in my opinion. And I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting, but I will say this. I think we need to get a lot better. I mean, I agree. If we had an influx of talent, I don't know if we'll be able to bring in and address all our needs this window. But if we did, I think you could play a little bit more like we did today and do much better and pick up a couple wins, and it won't be bad. Because I think out of the 4 teams behind us, certainly 3 of them are worse. I don't think that's no doubt. And frankly, United is the team ahead of us at this point, and there's a bit of a separation there, but they're not particularly good. Palace is playing better. I don't know. I mean, I don't think any of these teams are not beatable. I think Liverpool's quite good. I think other than that, anyone's gettable. But I don't know. Do we have the same needs? I just don't want a hesitation, Sean, to your point about the director of football relationship. I don't want Moyes to sit there and say, well, let me watch Ernest a little bit closer and see if we can get him or not, if I really want to work with him and blah, blah, blah. This has to happen now. Maybe that was obvious to him today. I don't see how it could not have been. I don't know. We just need players in the door tomorrow. I'm really concerned. I was not concerned. This display made me way more concerned than I thought I would be. And frankly, this hire made me more concerned. This hire did not give me a warm and fuzzy. I know it's good times with Moyes and all that, but it doesn't speak to me someone that I think is really prepared to take a team and tactically adjust them and set them up in a way. And we went through his relegation past. He did fine, but nothing dramatic and nothing spectacular. And if we're going to stake him with players, maybe they'll make a big difference. I don't know. James, I'm curious your thoughts.
Well, I'm just kind of reflecting on seasons past, and I remember vividly when we parted ways with Lampard and we brought in Sean Dyche, and there was the match at the Emirates, or maybe it was at home. I don't remember that, but I remember it was at home. Sorry, at Goodison Park. Dyche comes in and we beat Arsenal, and we played remarkably well. The players were all over the place. Again, a shift, maybe a more dramatic shift in style, but you saw a new manager bounce, and the new manager bounce is not it's a thing. It happens to teams. Clubs get often a lift when they bring a new guy in. Didn't see that today. We saw the kind of attempt to shift to a different style of play, but I didn't see a newly galvanized outfit of players. Saw a group that still looks like maybe a little run down from the things they've been through in the past couple of years. And I didn't think it would happen overnight, but I expected a little bit better of a performance. Maybe that was naive of me. It is still the same players. And I think the needs are the same to the original question, Ryan. I think we still need totally new fullbacks. We need a right winger for sure. I told you guys last episode I thought he was going to like the cut of Jack's jib, and he started him today. I'm
sure Jack didn't really convince. I'll tell you what, that would be nice. We could send him back and maybe make a deal for Willie and bring him in. There you go.
There you go.
There
That's
you go. Problem solved.
Upgrade.
No, I just, you could just see, I mean, we just lack so many guys that can attack quickly and with skill. Like one time Lindstrom got the ball, started taking off as fast as he is, one touch right on the feet of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, just fired it right back at him. There's nothing wrong with that pass, but it's like he didn't even know what to do with it. It's like, oh my God, that just got served to me very quickly. I think these are all the same needs. Nothing Mikolenko did today that made me feel, oh yay, warm and fuzzy, frankly.
Sure.
Not at all.
Yeah, and I think, James, to your point, it's a tough one, but I also think, to kind of give my own silver lining, right? Tough opponent to go against in your first game, right? You look at that team, it's a talented Villa side. I do think there were small moments where I could see some purpose of direct play, right? Where we weren't just hoofing it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
there was intent behind there, Sean. I mean,
there
was more structure in the way we were attacking them, for sure.
Yeah, like the corners that we got were on good plays, right? The defenders are making headers out, right? That just aren't where we're just hoofing it in the air and just hoping we get a random deflection, right? So I think for me, outside of the talent infusion, which I think we've already talked about in prior pods, for me, I really am hoping that he puts some of these players in positions to succeed, right? That to me is paramount more than anything, right? And I look at somebody like Beto. I hope he gets more of an opportunity. I know Dominic Calvert-Lewin's kind of been the topic of the presser and whatnot, but to kind of go through this opportunity with David Moyes right now, he needs goals, right? And I think he's gonna be honest with himself to know that, you know, he's gonna have to try different things. And I do think that I will say that I think sooner rather than later we'll probably see Beto as a starter, especially now that with the Broha injury, it almost seems like a guarantee that he's going to be here.
And I think that's one thing that we called out in the last episode, the Moyes pod. Go check it out if you haven't already. It's our biggest episode so far, which is great. We talked about he tends to figure out how to use guys optimally, like their best positions. He uses the resources he has available. He's been very, I think, coy and very avoidant to questions from the media comparing the team he had at the end of his last run at Everton to the current team, because I think there's the warm and fuzzies come back. People remember the good times before he left for United and what a well-drilled outfit he had. And he's been very clear, like, this ain't going to be that, guys. It took time the first time. It took time at West Ham. It would take time again at Everton. Unfortunately, I don't think we have that much time. So the clock's ticking. Can he make the necessary changes in time to save us? And I think that we'll have to just wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, the talent. I'll tell you what, the one thing I did leave this game thinking is we may need maybe more of an 8, maybe someone that just can roam around and get on the ball more than I think we did. I had a hunch when we were doing the Moyes thing, someone to connect and move the ball around and spray it around. I know Mangala was kind of doing that today, but I think under real pressure, he's not good enough to do it. I mean, I think we need another alternative for someone who can really get on the ball. Maybe as a 10-2 or as an active 10. I don't know. Some sort of versatile player in the midfield that can really get on it. I think without that, I think we're going to struggle when we have to have the ball. Just unlocking their defense, even spraying it wide. In addition to the fullbacks going to actually get back and forth, so Njai doesn't have to defend the whole time, because that still happened too much today. You know, leading the team in recoveries as usual.
I think that's a decent note to end on. Wish we could have been a little more positive on this pod, but you don't do a 180 on this squad of players overnight. We'll have to wait and see what happens on Sunday against Spurs. It's going to be a very interesting one. Moyes has seen this crew for 90 minutes plus 4 of stoppage time. Will he have seen enough of this starting 11? Will he make additional changes? We'll wait and see, and we'll, of course, be with you following that for a post-match. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We appreciate it. One last request to leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. Check the links in the description. Follow us on socials. Reach out. Love to hear from you. Appreciate you all. Until next time, up the Toffees.